let's start with an introduction. For those of you who don't know, this is Dr. Steve at Weird Medicine. Dr. Steve, do you want to just start out giving us like general background, your history in radio, however you want to introduce yourself?
So we're actually recording now. I'm just
we're recording.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, I'm Dr. Steve. I started Weird Medicine on Sirius XM on the Opie and Anthony channel in 2005, I think, or somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing it for quite a long time. And actually, I think it was 2007. 2004 is when they came to XM. So it was about 2-3 years after that. And I ran into Jim Norton on AOL Instant Messenger. Just AOL. Randomly. I said, "Hey, I love the show." He said, "Are you really a doctor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I've got a lump on my scrotum. Can I ask you about it?"
I love Jim Norton. You see his new wife he's posted now?
Yeah. It's not so new, but I don't know how much we can say about it. But anyway, they've been together for a while.
Yeah.
I see.
And so we talked for a while, and I had walked him through the physical exam, and we determined it was just a cyst on the skin of the scrotum. But the next day he went on the air and he said, I was talking to this doctor in Tennessee, and I have this lump on my scrotum. And Anthony said, "Yeah, because we know all the best doctors are in Tennessee." And that pissed me off. I'm the editor-in-chief.
I thought they were in Alabama, but
yeah, right. Well, I'm the editor-in-chief of a national medical journal. I've been at that point a physician for 20x years, and so I called Sirius XM, the studio. I said, "What is your can we cuss on this?"
Yeah.
Okay, what is your fucking fax number? And I faxed them my CV, and my resume, and it had all my publications, all that stuff on it. And all, I was chief of staff of a hospital, and chief medical officer, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
And they thought it was funny. And so they started calling me for stuff, should E-Rock do the cinnamon challenge? And I would say no. And then they would do it anyway, it was fun.
My mom actually, like, when I was in 8th grade, my friends were like, "Will you do the cinnamon challenge?" And she swallowed a whole spoonful of cinnamon. I shit you not. And it was not a big deal for her at all. She was like,
really?
She just
she doesn't have a smell.
She doesn't have a sense of smell, so I don't know if that contributes to it. But it was like, I've never seen anyone else do that. Yeah.
No, E-Rock, I thought he was dying when they did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I told you, assholes. But anyway, and then so one day Opie said, we've got some extra space on the weekends. We have these golden tickets. And if anybody has an interesting show, and at that time, I knew I could email Steve Carlisi, and he would, God rest his soul. I loved Steve, and
did he pass
and
away,
he would answer me. What's that?
Did he pass away?
Oh yeah. He was the executive producer, and he's not with us anymore. And but I knew at that time I could email him, and he would read it, and he would email me right back. And I had the idea for the show. I said, I'll tell weird stories, and I'll answer questions, from your audience, who none of which, I mean, if you ever been to an O&A event, not very many of them were taking nutrition or their health very seriously at the time. And he said, I love the idea. Let me take it to him. And it was probably 6 weeks later we were on the air. So
yeah, it's such a great idea for a show too, because everyone has medical questions, and everyone's embarrassed to talk about their medical questions. So it was just a great idea for the show. How long?
It wasn't my idea. I mean, it's not an original idea to do a medical question and answer show. Dr. Dean Adele was my inspiration for that. The thing about Dean Adele was, if someone called up and said, "Well, my penis," they'd click. They'd have to dump out on them. And we didn't have to do that. That was the innovation, is that we were the first uncensored medical show ever on broadcast radio.
Right.
Harry Fish tried to do it on Howard's channel. And I mean, Shuley's a friend of mine, but that show was boring as fuck. And so we're still the only truly uncensored medical show on broadcast radio. Lots of them on the podcast.
And how many years was your show on the air?
Still is.
Still is on
Still-
XM.
Yeah, I'm
Still
glad
on
that you
Sirius
did all
XM.
your research. Yeah, we're the longest.
No, I thought,
Well,
I
he
thought
is
you
the-
took a break.
He's
So-
the Wall
at some
Street
point.
No.
bitch. Never trust him on his
It's
stock
okay.
picks.
No. We actually never took a break. I should have taken several breaks, but
Okay.
we're the longest running show on that channel. We have a longer run than Opie and Anthony had on that channel. We have a longer run than Ron and Fez, and obviously Jim and Sam were later. So, yeah, it was weird. I just kept my head down and didn't make a lot of noise and got my shows in on time. And all they had to do was just upload them. They didn't have to do anything. And so by doing that, people sort of ignored us. And when I say people, I mean at Sirius XM.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, so we're by far the longest running show on that channel. And I'm even operating without a contract right now because I just want to make, if you're, I don't know, if you're Usain Bolt, if you can shave off a couple other hundreds just to preserve your record longer,
Yeah.
you will do that if you can. And so that's what I'm doing now. We're just going to keep going till they throw us off. There is one thing about it, if you have a Sirius XM show, you could say, yeah, I got a show on satellite radio, on the old Opie and Anthony channel. You're not just some schlub with a podcast. It gives you a little bit.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of cachet when it comes to getting guests or something like that. Not that I ever get any guests because I'm always embarrassed to ask anybody to take their time out to.
Yeah, I mean, Sirius
spend on my show.
XM, it definitely gives you some respect in the field because, I mean, that whole channel was sort of the footprint for modern day podcasts in a way.
Agreed. No, you're absolutely right. And Joe Rogan said
radio.
that too.
Yeah.
It was a hang, and the Opie and Anthony show was it was comedy college classes, where if somebody bombed, they, instead of running past it or fake laughing, which the local radio shows do, they would stop and, Anthony would hit the car crash. And then sometimes they would dissect that joke and say why it didn't work or what wasn't funny about it. You said this word twice or whatever. And, I had the opportunity to do a roast in Rochester, New York. And I took all of that. I'm not a funny person, but I know what's funny. And so I was able to, use what I learned listening to that show, just learning about what works in comedy to do a pretty good, 10-minute set. And it was really fun.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I love comedy. I'm not a funny person.
I would argue that you're funny. You told some hilarious
I think
stories.
you have great stories
on our
the material's
podcast.
funny.
Yeah.
I'm not funny, but the material's funny.
Yeah.
That was the thing. You talk about dicks and nuts and stuff. It's people are going to laugh. So really, when Tim Sabian tried to get my show off the channel, and it wasn't. Well, he did kind of have a vendetta against me because I met him up at Sirius XM when he took over channel 103 after he left Howard's channel. And he was sort of just waiting to retire, I think. And I met him, and, he was very nice, big, tall, imposing guy. He said, yeah, I was the one that, invented the Harry Fish show. And I just said, that show was boring as hell. And it pissed him off.
What was that show? That
was their medical show. It was with Shuley and this urologist. But the problem was the urologist didn't know anything about general medicine. If you're going to do a medical show, you got to be a generalist. I am a specialist, but I started off as a primary care provider. And you at least need to have sort of general knowledge of the fun stuff like thrombosed external hemorrhoids and stuff like that, and be able to gross out your co-host talking about how you incise those and things like that. And he just couldn't do that.
Yeah, and you can speak to pretty much anything. I mean, we've covered some pretty ridiculous topics with you. So
well, I've always said I could become an expert in anything in 5 minutes. Expert enough to talk about it.
What is it again that you're a specialist in now?
Well, family medicine, but I have a subspecialty. I do a lot of hospice stuff. And I was one of the first board certified people in the country in hospice and palliative medicine. So
Nice.
In that, yeah, I sat for it the first time you could sit for the boards, but anyway, yeah.
So, Dr. Steve, I know people are sick of hearing about COVID, and I'm sure you talk about it a lot. But
Well, I did. It took over my show for 2 effing years.
right. I guess I feel like we should at least touch on it briefly, just because you were in the vaccine trials.
Yes,
And it has been 3 years since we
that was the last time we talked, right?
Yeah. John McAfee was still alive back then.
Wow,
He
that was a
yeah.
long time ago.
Um,
Yeah, I was in the Pfizer trial.
Right.
So I got my first mRNA vaccine and at that time we were just desperate for anything.
Right.
But I was pushing hard, and if you go back, and the evidence is still there on my YouTube channel, I always said that the vaccine is cool technology, but what we need is a therapeutic that really
Right.
works. So if you get sick, you go to your doctor and you get a prescription and you take it to the pharmacy and you don't die and you don't go to the hospital. That's what we really needed.
Right.
And at the time, and I don't remember it was more like 9 months later, I was talking about a drug called favipiravir, which Fuji had in Japan. But because Fuji was not a major player in the United States, their drug never made it here. And we have molnupiravir now, but we never got favipiravir. And I was really very disappointed about that, because it seemed to me in June of 2021 we could have had a therapeutic if favipiravir had worked, and we could have avoided a lot of this shit, because you don't have to lock down when you've got a treatment, and you don't have to lock down when you've got a virus that does what this thing does. And,
right.
at the time,
I feel like therapeutic. There was a lot of controversy around different therapeutics, like ivermectin.
Correct.
If this specific therapeutic was adopted in the U.S., do you think the medical establishment would have embraced it?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. It had known activity against influenza, but also other RNA viruses. It was already on the market. It was in phase 4, which phase 4 means post-market. Okay, you have phase 1, you give it to about 20 people, make sure they don't all drop dead. And then phase 2, you start looking at adverse effects, but does it work? And then phase 3, that's where you have 30,000 people taking it. And you're looking at, is there a statistically significant difference between taking it or taking a placebo when it comes to the outcome that you're looking for? And favipiravir had already been through phases 1, 2, and 3 for influenza. It just hadn't been tested for COVID, or SARS-CoV-2, whatever. All they had to do was do that study. It could have been a phase 3 study right off the bat. Because it had already gone through phases 1 and 2. He could have recruited 30,000 people and just seen. And if it had worked, we could have had a therapeutic in June of 2021. But they didn't do that. They focused on this vaccine and all the controversy that is attended to that. And now, so I took the vaccine September of 2020, which was several months before everybody else could get it, because I was in the trial. Exactly 1 year to the day, I started feeling bad, and I walked out of my office. I asked a nurse to take my temperature. It was 103.5.
Oh my!
And I went home, got tested, and I tested myself. I was like, "Fuck!" and because it was positive. And if you're in the Pfizer trial, all they were looking at were cases. They weren't looking at transmissibility. They weren't looking at anything. They just did you get the disease or did you not? So I had to click a button on this app, and they immediately called me and said, "Get your ass in here." So the next morning I went in, they tested me, and they said, "Do you want to get the monoclonal antibodies?" This was during Delta. So I said, "Hell yeah, I do." And they said, "You're going to feel like you got hit by a Mack truck." And I did. But 17 hours later, I was had no fever. My oxygen was back to normal. And then let me share this with you. Let me show you what it did to me anyway.
Yeah, I'd like to see this.
I'm also, just to go back a second.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm curious why you think, like, why did the health industry not allow the, like
Well,
pill treatments or whatever?
no, we
to go
were
on?
all, I mean,
Okay.
the physicians were all in favor of it. Most people didn't know about it.
Okay.
You know, I knew about it because I was doing shows on it every
Uh-huh.
day at that time.
Yeah.
But I think Fuji wasn't a major player in the United States.
Mhm.
You know, it is interesting that Pfizer's drug molnupiravir, which is a cousin of favipiravir, did eventually come out. So I wonder if there was some. I don't know. I don't know if there was politics involved.
Yeah.
Or if they did the studies and I just never heard about them, which seems unlikely. But anyway, can you
Yeah.
guys see this? Are you seeing
Yep.
this?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
see
we
your
can.
lungs. Yep. We
So
see
this
your
is
lungs right now.
Wow.
a CT scan of my lungs, and this. Okay, so when my doctor called me after doing a chest X-ray because I continued to cough, this was a year later, so this would have been September of 2022.
Wait, a year after you were diagnosed?
Yes. Yeah. After I had it, I
Holy
still had
shit.
a persistent cough. And he got an X-ray, and he said they misread it. They said you have pulmonary fibrosis, and I'm like,
Holy shit.
okay, now
Oh,
that's
no.
that. Okay, I'm gonna be dead in 2 years. So I went running over to get a CT scan, and I made the person, the technologist, show it to me, and they start cutting. Can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They start cutting at the top here, and so this is, you know, and you're looking at it from the top down. I'm like, oh, looks good. We got down to this. It's like, what in the hell is that? I thought I had stage 3 lung cancer.
Yeah, so
Holy shit.
just for people just listening, he's pretty much like the bottom quarter third of
Right.
his left lung is just scar tissue.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You're looking at it as if I'm facing you, so that the scar tissue's in my left lung.
So how do you
Anyway.
go about healing that? Do you need
You don't.
can you get it operated on, or you just
Yes, if it gets infected a bunch of times, I will get it operated on and have to have that part of my lung removed.
Wow, I didn't
So-
realize that was a possible outcome of getting COVID. Like
Shit, me
what
neither.
even caused that?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 hypotheses. Either when I was coughing and whooping, you know, that, you know, when you cough, you exhale forcefully, but you also have to inhale forcefully. And what if I was eating popcorn or something and I inhaled a popcorn kernel and it just got wedged there? It could be that, or it could be that the virus was set up so much inflammation that my body just went in and killed that lung tissue just to try to get rid of it. And, you know, I just wonder if obviously the vaccine didn't keep me from getting that variant, but I had influenza one year where I had a fever of 105. The vaccine didn't stop me from getting it, but I just sailed through it. And
So
so
it
I
wasn't as
did.
bad.
Yeah, I survived this. The monoclonal antibodies certainly helped me. At that time, we had ward after ward after ward filled with people sicker than hell in the hospital. That's the thing that people who weren't in, to this day, I get people saying, well, it's just it's like, you know, overblown flu as marketing and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, we've had flu epidemics. I lived through the swine flu epidemic, all that stuff. I have never in 37 years of being a physician seen hall after hall after hall shut down to normal, quote unquote, you know, regular patients and filled with just one diagnosis. And at the end, just before Omicron, all we had were unvaccinated people. So listen, I'm not a vaccine mandate type person. I took the booster because I'm at high risk. You saw my lung. I've got to take it. I'm not saying the government should mandate this for anybody. It's a personal choice.
But you think it's definitely like a good thing to do, especially
if you're high risk. I
for
think
some
is what he's
people,
saying.
yeah, if you're
Yeah,
high
for some
risk,
people, but not for everyone.
and even the reasonable people who were like the vaccine, this is, you know, bullshit type, were saying that if you're at high risk, that those people should probably get it, and everybody else, you know, just leave them alone. And you know, one of the things that we had a guy on my show that had the story that he told was he paid $100 to get a vaccine card signed by a nurse, and and he caught all kinds of hell, and so did I caught all kinds of hell from people saying, why would you have this guy on the show? But the point I was trying to make, and it turned out he was he was being he thought he was being hilarious. But the point I was trying to make was, if you thought that going to a concert where they required those vaccine cards was keeping you safe, you were out of your mind.
Yeah.
Those kind of measures do not work, because there's always a way around them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think I'm just praying that we learned from this that not to do it that way ever again.
It politicized things so much, and just like it divided people so much more. Which
they're still divided about it.
The level of conspiracy theories, and just like I feel like a large portion of the country, the average person, like has I don't know, has a bunch of views on COVID that goes against what like the majority of doctors think.
Well,
but
the majority of doctors can be stupid too. We used to think that treating people with congestive heart failure with beta blockers was malpractice, and now it's malpractice if you don't do it. So consensus isn't science, that's the thing. But
also,
but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't put this on our topics, but I'm interested, like, because I watched that documentary about like the Sacklers and like pretty much the opioid epidemic.
Yes,
These doctors, they're just trying to make a living. They're going through med school and having to pay all these bills, and then these like pharmaceutical reps are coming to them and trying to get them to like sell their pharmaceutical
I was around
drugs.
during that time.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, your experience with that.
No, I was in the middle of it, and the thing is that unless you were a speaker for them, you weren't making any money off of that. What was going on was they were threatening us, saying, you're going to get sued if you don't write strong opioids for people with chronic non-cancer pain, because you are under-treating them.
Whoa.
And you guys are opiophobes. And I would go I would go to medical meetings, and I remember seeing one person after another getting up to the podium. And this was CME, this is continuing medical education. And I remember an attorney, a woman attorney, getting up and saying, I just couldn't do my job until my doctor finally prescribed transdermal fentanyl patches for my chronic low back pain. And so we were like, well, okay, I get,
Yeah, you don't know better, really, too.
No,
right?
They were telling us we were doing it wrong, so we resolved to do it right. And so we started writing a lot of these opioids. It was a hell of a lot easier to do it than to keep saying no.
Yeah.
Do you think the average doctor? Did you think the average doctor understood how addictive they were? Or
we were told that if they had quote unquote real pain, that addiction wasn't an issue.
Interesting.
And if you look, there was a letter to the editor in the Journal of the American Medical Association called the Porter and Jick letter, and they looked at 40,000 patients who were given opioids in the hospital, and only 4 of them, so 1 in 10,000, displayed symptoms of addiction. In retrospect, it's laughable if it weren't so, but people from that letter to the editors where a lot of this stuff started.
Kind of like the cigarette companies, like 20 years before that, or 30 years before.
Sure.
That,
it's good for you.
Yeah.
And the doctors blamed the pharmaceutical companies, and the pharmaceutical companies blamed the doctors. From my point of view, I really feel like the
doctors didn't market it, though. We had nothing to do with the marketing, unless
I would definitely blame the pharmaceutical companies for sure. From my point of view.
They were doing, and this is going to sound bad, but they were doing what was right for their shareholders,
right?
Which was to drive profits, because that's what corporations do.
Right.
And the primary goal of a corporation is to make money for the shareholders. So there's a lot of forces there that led to just a nightmarish scenario. And you can look at up until about 2010. I wish if I'd known we were going to talk about this, I would have brought some slides.
Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I give a talk about this, and you can see the opioid prescriptions increasing at kind of a linear rate until about 2010, when they start to drop off dramatically, when we realized we were part of the problem. So we did something about the supply. significantly over time. We didn't do much about the demand. And you can
Right.
see there's another line that I have there, which is opioid overdoses, and it started increasing exponentially as the number of pills on the street
Oh.
decreased linearly. Overdose deaths increased exponentially. And you go, well, why? It doesn't seem to make sense. Well, when you have a pill that's marked, you know how many milligrams is in there. When you've got a dealer that's going, well, I've got a kilo of fentanyl, let's just put a little bit extra in there.
Right.
And then you have little packets, you don't know what's in there. And so
people switching over to heroin when they can't get their
right.
script.
And it's mostly fentanyl now. That's the thing. When if you talk to the ER people, they'll tell you most of their overdose deaths are caused by fentanyl.
Oh God.
Why was that
fentanyl's
ever
a great
even,
drug.
Yeah, why? Like because it's everyone's always like, oh, it's so much stronger than heroin. Everyone's dying from it. So what was the original purpose of it for why it was created?
Okay, so fentanyl is a great drug. We use it in the ICU. It's fat soluble, and it's a small molecule, which means that you can put it on the skin and it will be transmitted to the bloodstream. So that's transdermal fentanyl or duragesic patches. You can, because it's fat soluble and a small molecule, you can put it twixt cheek and gum like a tobacco nib, and it'll absorb. Whereas morphine won't. Morphine's water soluble. You'll get people thinking that it's absorbable in the buccal or the oral mucosa. It's not. It has to be swallowed. So there are some real benefits to it. And they use it for sedation in the ICU, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's a great drug. The problem with it is it's dosed in microgram amounts. So when you make it, you can get a brick about this big as 2.2 pounds, a kilo of fentanyl, and it'll have 20 million doses in there. It's really easy to smuggle. That's what's so it's great about it if you're a clandestine fentanyl.
Do you know how it's produced? Is it pretty easy to make, or?
I was an organic chemist, and I have never looked. I'm always a little nervous about Googling how do you make fentanyl, because I know that people are, that stuff comes up. I see in all these court cases. Well, his last three things were, how do you hide a body? So I'm always a little careful about that. So I don't know. I know it's a very small molecule that, it is an opioid. So it's got to be. I mean, we could look it up real quick. Hell, let's look it up.
Oh yeah, I feel you. The other day I tweeted, I hope Joe Biden and Trump die, and then I was like, oh shit, I probably can't tweet that.
Yeah, no, that'll get the Secret Service.
I was like, it's totally a joke, but then I deleted the tweet after it.
Yeah, they don't care. It's a joke. Let me see.
Well, I think one silver lining of the opiate epidemic is all of the new treatments that are coming out, like ibogaine, and there's some other one. Supposedly that changes your brain chemistry, so you're not
ketamine.
Ketamine.
Yeah, and so we're based in Colorado, where ibogaine, ketamine, and it's
I don't know about ibogaine.
Psilocybin is going to be legal next year, and then for 2025, it's like
is that right in Colorado?
In Colorado for medicinal purposes.
Yeah, good.
You can cultivate it in everything you own.
What?
Yeah.
That's
cultivate
awesome.
It. You just can't distribute it.
See, I lived through the 60s where you would meet someone in a back alley. Yeah. And you go, dude, I don't know you, but it was the guy you sat next to and in class. And I always longed for the day when you could buy pot legally. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we can now have psilocybin medically is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I have sort of a weird take on this. Actually, I was talking to Mandy Statmiller the other day, and just about writing. And she said I really should write a book about this. I don't know if anybody buy it, but my take is my take on psychedelic medications for mental health. And I think Timothy Leary did us a real disservice.
Really?
Because he did.
Turn out, whatever.
Tune in to. Well, I'll have to research that for the book. But anyway, he popularized LSD and psilocybin in a time when Sandoz Pharmaceuticals was making pharmaceutical grade stuff for medical research. And then he's like, well, everybody should take this stuff. And so the Democrats and Republicans at that time both were socially very conservative in Congress. And so they saw all these, quote unquote, dirty hippies, yeah, man, I'm tripping balls. And so they just shut off all research. It all dried up and went to zero.
Interesting.
And for like 50 years, it didn't come back until a few years ago.
And it's totally misunderstood. I mean, you're spot on with that.
So I actually had two guys on the podcast, and they didn't let me post the episode, but they're like late 20s. One guy was an amateur snowboarder. One guy was a soccer player, and they both suffered a bunch of traumatic brain injuries. And then they found psilocybin mushrooms as a way to like an alternative to all those other medications they were taking to actually help their depression from the TBIs and everything.
I believe that. So the problem is they're having to do it on their own.
Well, no, they actually they
got a place to do it for them.
They had some money, so they're from Aspen, so they started their own company.
Okay.
It's called mysynapsejourney.com.
Okay.
And they do consultations where you could buy a 30-day supply of their psilocybin blend, and it's these microdose capsules you take every morning. You go to work, you do your day.
It's also combined with MDMA, right?
That's a different one.
Whoa,
that's like their weekend. I can get.
That's legal.
I'm
moving to Colorado.
It's gonna be legal in January, but I'll go get the packaging, and I could show it to you in a second too. It's interesting.
Yeah, I would like to see it. Yeah, old. I think doesn't Tukey live in Colorado or something? Didn't he say that?
Who?
Bedabbler, and that. Is he not? I seem to remember that he said something about he went to Casa Bonita because he lives close to there.
Yeah, that Casa Bonita just opened up. But
and he said Denver. They said, "Is Denver nice?" He said, "No, it's a shithole." It's like, okay, I don't know if that's true.
Oh, that's not true. Well, we love
Denver.
I'm
sure it's not.
Yeah. But back to this potential book, Dr. Steve. What would the thesis of the book on psychedelics be?
Basically, just discussing the research and efficacy of psychedelic medications on on mental health stuff. Because
interesting,
I was on Dave Landau not too long ago. Check it out as Normal World, and I did about an hour-long interview. And then I got to play the psychiatrist who was interviewing Freddie, Jason, and Michael Myers.
I saw that.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a lot of fun. So, and I love those guys. And so a lot of the stuff that I said here, I say it the same way all the time. I mean, it's just, there's not a lot of novelty to this topic anymore. But I feel like the SSRIs are kind of all we have now or SNRIs or SSRIs, are so prescribed, and a lot of people don't get any benefit from it. And then it's like, well, now what do I do? Well, let's switch you to a different SSRI, or let's go from an SSRI to an SNRI, et cetera, and back and forth, and people aren't getting a lot of benefit. Wouldn't it be nice if we just had a different class of drug that we could use?
Oh, yeah.
That has good data behind it. And there's a lot of bias against it. I read an article the other day saying, oh, this is the death knell for ketamine, and it's such poor medical journalism out there.
Mm-hmm.
What the author of the article was trying to say that, well, this study just shows ketamine doesn't work. And if you actually read the original journal article, what it was they were giving people either ketamine or saline injection during surgery, and then a month later or whatever, doing a depression inventory on them. Didn't say they were depressed before. They were just doing a depression inventory on these people afterward to see if there was any difference, and there wasn't. Well, you wouldn't expect there to be. It's stupid.
Yeah.
So
the death knell of ketamine.
That's insane.
I have a real problem with medical journalism. It's most science journalism. So
Yeah, so these guys, it looks like.
Oh yeah. Let me see what you got.
It looks like this, and it's called Synapse.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah, and so the way they do it right now, it's just these little like fillable capsules, and
Yeah.
it's
Can
some
you read
like
the ingredients to me? Does it say
well,
what the ingredient is?
It's a proprietary blend, but it's
Of
psilocybin. There's some lion's mane in there.
it says
Um,
psilocybin on it.
it does not yet because it's not technically legal yet. So they offer consultations, and then they'll mail this to you or send it to you.
Okay.
So that's one of their products. And
Because
they
you got to
have
be
like
careful. I was in North Carolina, and they said, "Oh, we've got all these, Amanita muscaria mushroom gummies, right?" And when I looked at the ingredients, I do want to see that. Sorry, I'm just,
you're good.
Oh, no worries.
but when I looked at it, what it had in it was muscarine. Now that does come from the Amanita muscaria mushroom, but it's just an anticholinergic like Benadryl.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
see.
So the ingredients on this, it says it's really small, so I won't hold it to
Yeah,
the
it's
camera.
okay.
But it says lion's mane, 0.5 grams, and then proprietary mushroom blend, which that's a psilocybin blend they use.
Is it?
Yeah, it is because I know these
work.
guys, and
Okay.
they're like younger, but they have actual doctors who are working with them from
Yeah.
like the Aspen area, where that's where all the money
Yeah.
is. So they have a whole
Yeah.
what they call a brain fund, and they're actually doing like EEG scans on people to measure alpha waves and see what they're doing and how they're reacting. And they've had multiple patients who were diagnosed with early onset dementia that like these microdose capsules
Well,
have
now that's
actually
interesting, isn't it?
have actually stalled or like sort of reversed the waves in
If
their
they
brain.
can, if they can prove that, that's
Yeah.
huge. And so how would you prove something like that? I'll give you guys a quiz.
They're doing this research, double blind studies and everything, and then once it's legal in January, they are going to release.
You said the magic word, double blind. Yeah.
Double blind studies, and they're going to release the research. But right now, it's like kind of early marijuana research, right? Where like you couldn't really do it, but they're doing it. And then once it's technically legal, they'll release the research.
It doesn't have to be technically legal. They just have to get approval to do it. Back in the day, well, they weren't illegal back in the day until when they were studying psilocybin in the 50s and 60s. That's we could have had all this stuff. We could be on the third generation of psilocybin like molecules if we had research back then that was completed. And you didn't, one of the problems that Leary did was they had this one study where they went to this church, and the researchers took the drug with the subjects, and they were like, well, we wanted them to feel comfortable. It's like, no, you just wanted to get high on pharmaceutical psychedelics. But anyway,
so what do you mean by third generation of psilocybin? Are you talking about new molecules actually created,
or changing the molecule? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's also like
tweak it.
There's also a lot of different strains of psilocybin mushroom.
Absolutely.
And they all have crazy names. It's like Jedi Mind Freak, like Penis Envy, Golden Teacher.
The Penis Envy, it's white penis
Albino
envy.
Penis
Albino
envy.
Penis Envy. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, Golden Teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're all different strains of cubensis mushrooms that have psychedelic properties.
And they have such a profound impact on consciousness that it's such a shame that this didn't work out in the 60s, because who knows the type of changes it could have made in society. And I know that's big thinking. Maybe it would have done nothing, but
I'm
have hurt.
irritated that people still have to kind of sneak around and use labeling that's frankly misleading, and but they have to because it's not legal. But then they're really doing illegal things and having to sneak around and prevaricate and all this stuff when we could have just already had this. You just go and you get a prescription and go on your way.
So for example, misleading labeling. This says I'll hold it to the camera, but it says 0.2 G mushrooms, 0.015 gram magic, and then these tiny little gummies.
Yeah, come on. Come on. Yeah.
So the magic is the MDMA. It's like pure MDMA, and then the mushroom mixture. And like, honestly, you eat one of these on the weekends, and it's like All right, I'm feeling.
No, I'm sure it
I'm
is. I
ready to
mean,
go,
doing
yeah.
drugs is, is quite the recreational activity. But I hate for people to have to go outside the system. And listen, I'm not all about the system either, but to go outside the system and have to feel like they got to do this on their own because they're desperate for relief. And so, yeah, they'll try this or they'll try that. And, I'm glad that these things are available, but again, we should have been studying this so we know exactly what doses to give and under what circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm old school on that. I just feel.
No, that's important, I would think.
I think so.
So, Dr. Steve, on the topic
Yes.
of SSRIs, depression, anxiety, I recently came across this. He's a human biologist named Gary Brecka. Have you heard of Gary Brecka?
Is a human biologist as opposed to an alien biologist?
Yeah. I don't know exactly what. So he was in the health insurance field as a mortality expert for 30 years.
Okay.
And like pretty interesting background. He claims that he became an expert at health and death.
The biohacker, dude.
Yeah, and he's got all these like alternative theories and ways to fight anxiety, depression, high blood pressure that apparently no other doctors are doing or have heard of. Like he basically changes celebrities' lives. If you haven't heard about him, maybe
I'm looking at his website right now.
I'm just curious if you think it's bullshit or if there's any validity to it. And I know you've never heard.
I'm always suspicious when you have secret knowledge that no one else has.
He talks a lot about the methylation process and that 50% of people can't. I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
I have to take methylfolate because I can't metabolize regular folate. I have a thing called
that's what he talks about.
MTHFR disorder. Yeah. And you can just do 23andMe and find out if you have that. That's how I found out about it.
Interesting.
But so what I'm looking at, and listen, I'm not going to crap on the guy. He may have the secret, but here's the thing. If I have the secret to, let's say, I keep hearing this thing that doctors know the cure to cancer, but they just won't do it because they make more money. If I had the cure for cancer and it was something simple like taking, I don't know, some root or something like that. Yeah, sea moss. Yeah, I would be the first person to give it to everybody, and I would do that just for the blowjobs, just for the notoriety that you would get from that. So what I'm looking here is this, this secret knowledge is quite pricey. It's $7,000.
Yep.
And of course, if you're Tom Cruise or whatever, I don't know that he's, has anything to do with it. But I'm just saying, if you've got that kind of money, that's nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at a lot of pictures of this guy up on a stage with the little, wireless microphone and the adulation of the crowd and all this stuff. So it looks a whole lot like me, but he may have the answer. I do not know.
He just went on Joe Rogan, so that's why I wanted to ask. But it ties into this new rise in the quick fix, like all these weird supplements that are being sold.
I don't know if you've ever been on TikTok, but you see people, they're being like,
crazy.
buy like CMOS, buy well, this what else? Like, and they're making hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars selling supplements.
Shilajit is a popular one.
Shilajit, magnesium.
Shilajit. That's an interesting one. That's where they scrape debris from the rocks in like the Himalayas, right? Like on isn't that what that is?
Goo. Yeah, it's like
it's goo from rocks. And we had some in here and it stinks to high heaven, and it's probably got some good minerals in it and stuff like that. It's fine. I mean, people will ask me, is vitamin D, does it work? And it's like, okay, so this is where I was getting at before. How do we know things? Work for what? What's your output? I mean, what's the end game? What are you trying to do? You trying to prevent rickets? Works good as hell for that. Are you trying to prevent cancer? Now we've got a whole nother thing. So how would we know? Well, you give 1,000 people vitamin D and 1,000 people a placebo, and you follow them over 20, 30 years. And at the end, neither they nor the researcher can know which one they're on. And then at the end of 30 years, you find out.
Wallstreet Bitch. That's
you find that's right.
Yeah.
You find out if there's a statistically significant difference in cancer rates between those two groups, and maybe you have to look at the specific cancer. And when you do that, they have done this. There doesn't seem to be any difference, although low vitamin D levels are associated with cancer risk. So it appears that that's a marker, not a cause. In other words, if your vitamin D levels are low, you can take vitamin D. It's probably isn't going to hurt you any, but that low vitamin D that's leading to heart attack and stroke and cancer and stuff is more likely to be a marker, an indicator that you've got risk somewhere else.
I was actually surprised because we're in our early 30s, 32, 33-ish. And I hadn't been to the doctor probably since I was 20.
Yeah.
And I recently went a few months ago and did the blood test, all that stuff, and everything came back good, except my vitamin D levels were low.
Yeah.
And I'm someone
you don't get enough sun.
No, but like I'm a river guide all summer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I'm going on a trip in Mexico on the Guatemalan Mexican border, Rio Umanacita through Mayan ruins for a week-long 88-mile trip. And
you're the guide?
I'm not on that trip. I don't speak the Mayan dialect, so I'll be rowing my own boat, but we're hiring.
Okay, I used to do the Nantahala and the New River out of Thurman, West Virginia.
West Virginia.
That's awesome.
Release is awesome. I was a guide out on the
Gauley.
The Gauley. I've heard great things. I really want to go there, but I was a guide on the Roaring Fork River in Colorado, the Colorado River, Arkansas River. And I don't do it professionally anymore, but I'm still outside all summer, and
so that's not it.
I ski all winter, but I had vitamin D deficiency, and I'm outside more than the average person, I would say. So I was curious.
So take vitamin D. It's not going to hurt you. It might help. There's some positive research on vitamin D, but I just give that as an example. When people just say, "Does it work?" It's like, well, for what? Would it just to make you live longer?
Yeah,
man, we don't have any data for that. We would have to do a study.
My doctor is like, you're deficient, and gave me like 12 pills to take over 12 weeks or whatever. But
we don't know what we're doing when we do that, but we think it's got it. If it's low, we should make it normal. It seems like it should help.
Apparently it helps.
Appreciate
with COVID
the honesty.
Too, so.
It was supposedly.
I thought it was from the sun, and I was like, God damn, I'm outside more than most people, and I'm deficient.
I figured in Colorado maybe you just weren't getting enough sun, but
No, we get more. I mean, I grew up in Jersey, and we get like 300 days of sunshine here. That's what Denver is famous for. So
that's awesome. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
We have bad ozone and radon.
I was only in Denver once. It was right after Denver won the Super Bowl, and I went down from my hotel to the parade, and I saw John Elway, just like
that's awesome,
right there. That was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, probably right on Market Street.
Yeah, maybe. I remember that they were burning one of the streets down.
Yeah,
they were quote unquote like celebrating.
Yeah.
So I went to Chapel Hill, and they would do that. If we won the NCAA, they would tear Franklin Street down. And if we didn't win, they would tear Franklin Street down. And they would run into this.
Getting screwed.
I remember they ran into this market because the mob just goes wild. And back then you could drink at 18. And so they all ran, a bunch of people ran into this place called Fowler's Market. The people from Chapel Hill know what I'm talking about, and got up on the meat counter and just started pissing. And it's like, why are you doing this to these people? What does that have to do with basketball? The mob mentality is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I'm reading this book called Sapiens right now, which is interesting. Basically, like the history of human beings, but from a I guess like a psychological standpoint, like why we are the way we are. So,
wow, you guys actually read. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
No, I mean for real, that's cool.
Is it true that it's inevitable that we're gonna have?
That sounded condescending. I didn't mean it to be that way. I'm just
no.
I talk to a lot of people who don't read, if you know what I mean. So.
Oh, I just got a Kindle, and I'll tell you, if you don't have a Kindle and you want to
Yeah.
start reading, that's a good way to start.
Yeah, I love my Kindle. I read every night.
But how inevitable is it that we are going to have another worldwide pandemic? I'm hearing this over and over again from doctors.
In
like,
in 100 years, we'll have another one.
You think it's going to be 100 years?
Well, we seem to have one every 100 years. And the thing is, there's 5 circulating coronaviruses other than SARS-CoV-2. So that's the 6th. So now it's endemic. We went from epidemic to pandemic, and now it's endemic, meaning it's just there all the time. And but I will guarantee you that those 5, when they emerged, they did the same thing. But if they emerged 10,000 years ago, when you've got the plague of Justinian, which wasn't 10,000 years ago, but you know what I mean, that's just lost in the noise. If you lose 1% of people who get it, who's going to notice back then? People were dying right and left anyway.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm pretty convinced this is what new coronaviruses do.
I'm hearing because of how interconnected everyone is that it's going to happen a lot sooner than 100 years. But
maybe.
Yeah,
we've had international travel for a long time, though. Influenza does it. We've had influenza pandemics. I mean, we had one in 2008, but I think what you're talking about is a lockdown, holy shit type pandemic. That's those tend to be a little bit more because the big influenza, the Spanish flu, which started in Kansas, was about 100 years ago. 1918.
I think Wallstreet Bitch is referring to like that, the like rotting carcass disease you see on elk or deer.
Oh yeah.
And I forget the exact name of it, but like if something like that was
that would be bad.
From human,
or Ebola that you
humans,
can give to somebody easily, and there's a long period of where you're transmitting it, but you don't have the disease and all that. So that would be bad.
So what do you think? I know this is sort of a vague question, but what do you think is the greatest threat to human health in 2023?
Super volcanoes, for real.
more than nukes? Just had one popping off, right?
Yeah,
I saw something about that.
Yeah. So the Yellowstone is a super volcano, and the last time it actually erupted, it sterilized the whole continent of North America.
That's literally terrifying.
And apparently, it's 100,000 years overdue. So, we need to get off this planet. And to do that, we need to all agree that we need to get off this planet and make plans to do so. But we're arguing over, whose, ancient texts are more right. And, it just blows my mind, the stuff we get pissed about. People.
So you really think like we need to leave the planet?
No, we do.
As soon as possible.
Yeah. Why else are we here? We need to. Look. SETI has shown us that either the dark forest hypothesis is correct.
What is that?
That's the idea that the universe is actually populated, but everyone's keeping their mouths shut because if you stick your head up, then it gets chopped off by some malevolent intelligence or something.
Okay,
interesting.
And that's why we're not hearing anything, because everybody's they know stuff we don't, and here we are. Hey, we're here, and but if that isn't true, then the universe so far as we can tell, is empty. At least the part we can see. This is ours. It's been given to us. What are we doing arguing here? We need to get out of here. And if our species is going to survive, then we must get off this planet, because in a billion years, the sun is going to start to become a red giant. So that's about how much time we've got.
What about like a multiverse theory where there's other dimensions, different timelines, all of that? Like that's kind of
awesome.
I lean into that more than anything else.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate thing. First, we get off the planet, and then we get out into the galaxy, and then other galaxies, that kind of stuff. And then, but at some point, this universe is going to end. So then, what we need to do is find a way to get into other universes that are younger, so that we can populate those forever. And just do that on and on and on. I'm all in on that. How do you access another universe. I don't know.
We're working on it,
Well,
and we figure it out. We'll let you know. But honestly,
Okay.
I
Probably
no, that's what a
psilocybin.
lot of the theories
Yeah.
are right now.
yeah,
Jesse Waters just came out with a really good documentary about UFOs where he interviews that whistleblower David
yeah.
Grush.
Yes, yeah.
And
He believes in
his main
multiverse.
theory is that these UFOs are coming from other dimensions or
Well,
the future, like future humans.
sure. That's a fun hypothesis.
I've also been a
Which is
comic book
interesting.
nerd, and like that's the best
Me
place
too.
the comics go. Yeah,
Yeah, I wish I could show
Yeah.
you my room and the other
Yeah.
thing. It's
Or
just
like
I've got a whole shelves
the
of comics.
Superman one where he becomes a communist Superman.
Oh, Red Sun.
Red Sun. That's a great one.
Oh, yeah, that was good. That was good.
That's a really good one.
So my concern about time travel is, not only the paradoxes, but Michael Crichton fixed that one. He just said when you go back in time, you're going to another a parallel universe that's very close to ours, so that there's no
Right.
paradoxes. If you kill your grandfather there, they don't die in your universe. They die
Right.
in that one. So you would never be born in that universe. So I thought that was pretty clever. But the
Yeah.
thing is that where are they? Where are the time travelers? They would show up to every disaster. There would have been, if you were a time traveler,
Yeah,
and you could
that's
easily
true.
go back in time, wouldn't you just show up for 9/11 and just stand around watching, waiting for it to happen, or some disaster like that?
Unless
There'd
there's
be
very strict rules and regulations, like you know what I mean.
enforced
in the
by who?
future.
Oh, the time government.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
People are just going to ignore that shit. They would be here. Where are
Yeah.
they? There's no
That's
evidence
true.
of it. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that's true.
I really want that to be true. I want the UFOs to land on the White House lawn and the people come out and, give us some sort of knowledge.
Hey, maybe
And not
one
a
day.
cookbook that says to serve man, if
I
you
mean,
get that reference.
What do you think? What do you think of like all this UFO whistleblowers and the New York Times writing about it? Like,
Yeah.
what is?
I'm
What are
glad
your
people
thoughts
are
on that?
taking it seriously. I was kind of a UFO guy back in the day, and then I got tired of the fact that it was all, well, look at this picture, this is good
Yeah,
evidence, but there was never any real evidence that you could hold in your hand.
and there
And
still really
I
isn't.
feel right. I know. I feel like we're getting closer, but I really want it to be real. But I've been burned so many times on
I know.
crackpot shit that I've become a little bit more of a realist in the sense that I want it to be real, but I'm not going to get all in on it until I see something.
That's
And
how I feel.
faith is for religion. It's not for science,
That's how I feel. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Anyway, I'm with you on that. But we'll do mushrooms and we'll see the aliens that way. And commune with them.
Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of theories about communing with entities on substances like DMT.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's been a lot of scientific experiments at high levels of government with DMT. I don't know if that's true, but
No, that absolutely is true. The CIA was
really?
doing. Yeah, there was a study or a program where the CIA was trying to use psychedelics for interrogation and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And they were giving people stuff. They would volunteer or they would recruit them and then not tell them what they were doing.
Interesting.
And they were also trying to get mind control and some things like that. Things that the CIA would want to do. I mean, I understand why they were pursuing that.
Interesting.
But yeah, the thing is that it's hard to argue with people's experience. You've heard of alien abduction stories,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
people are asleep and then they wake up and they can't move, and then the aliens come and take them somewhere and probe them and stuff.
Sleep
Mhm.
it could be sleep paralysis.
It is
too.
sleep paralysis because I've
Yeah.
had it.
Yeah.
And if I didn't know what it was, I would have been absolutely convinced that a giant eyeball was floating next to my bed and blinked, and then I had like a seizure.
Yeah.
And because it happened multiple times between the age of say 25 and 40, and then I never had it again. But
Interesting.
I had
I've
the
had
exact
similar
same thing.
experiences.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Some people refer to it as like shadow people. I've seen because like honestly, for our podcast, I've just been looking up like the weirdest belief Facebook groups and trying to
Yeah.
get people. So like
Yeah.
one that we stumbled upon actually is like twin flames, which maybe we could get a medical perspective on
I've heard about
reincarnation.
twin flames.
Yeah, there's a Netflix documentary about it where
Right.
it's like a
That's
cult
right.
leader trying to convince people that like this is your twin flame, your eternal soulmate, and so you're a divine masculine, you're a divine feminine. You should do a gender change on your person, and so they've actually
interesting.
They've actually gotten members to do gender changes.
Really?
Like surgically.
I married who I thought
yeah.
was my quote unquote soulmate, and it turned out to be a bunch of horse shit. So
are you divorced now, or are you still married?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, that one didn't work out. My soulmate. It was one of those. We met on Q-Link, which was before AOL, and it was such an intense online thing.
Yeah.
I fell in love with this image of her that wasn't been aligned with reality.
Yeah.
And my friends at the time were like, "You're moving too fast, dude." And I'm like, "You don't know what love is. Only we know. We discovered love." And I was so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, it's a good experience, though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Especially if you hadn't been late in a while, like it's easy to fall in love.
No, that part was pretty good. I was doing okay back then, but yeah, it was still pretty good. That part was pretty intense. But I got her divorced. I paid for it down in the Dominican Republic, and we got her divorced by the lawyer that did Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor and a bunch of other people.
Well, at least
And so that was cool. He was a celebrity lawyer.
Oh,
And
that's
then-
great.
And then we got all caught up in the moment, got married while we were down there, and that was the mistake.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, wait,
Oh yeah, it's cool. I had a credit rating of 0 for 10 years because of her.
Oh no. That's
Oh
not
yeah. Yeah, it was lots to that story. But anyway, it was a nightmare.
That's why I only date homeowners now.
That's smart.
Yeah, no, it's not dumb. It's not dumb. Yeah. Good for you.
So,
Thank you.
Dr. Steve. Back to sleep paralysis.
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Can
It's called
you explain?
hypnopompic episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on there? Because it started happening to me probably at age 25,
Mm-hmm.
and it still sometimes happens to me now. So it started.
Oh,
while
you
I
still
was an
have it.
adult. Yeah,
Well,
I
I'm gonna
still
give you a
have it, and
project.
it's scary, honestly. Like I hate it.
I'm
But sometimes I
gonna-
see weird shit.
Yes, you do. Okay, so this is what's going on. When you dream, when you're in REM sleep, your body the brain has to shut the body down, because if it didn't, you'd become a somnambulist. In other words, you would get up and start acting out your dreams.
Right.
So it shuts that off. And then you have your dreams and stuff, and then it'll let you have control of your body again after all that stuff is done. And so there's a whole lot of switches that have to be thrown. And if there's a system of switches, you can also have a system where the switches don't work properly. And if your conscious mind wakes up during that, you're still in REM sleep, but you're awake. And you may notice that when you open your eyes, you can see the room around you.
Yep.
But it's pitch dark in there. You're not seeing it. It's your internal map that's actually in the base of your brain is so accurate that it'll fool you into thinking, well, the lights are on and I can see everything. But you can't move. So I'm going to give you, and then you start hearing things. And I would hear papers floating around, in 3D sound, going round and round like surround sound, or I would hear people talking. And so I'm going to tell you what to do when this happens again. Okay.
Okay.
So you can't sit up, right? Because you're paralyzed, but
Right.
you can levitate. And so there's two things that you can do.
Wait,
First thing I
what?
want you to do is try to levitate your right or left arm. It doesn't matter which one it is. So you're
just
laying there.
lift up.
Yeah, don't try to lift it. You can't, because that'll frustrate you. You're going to levitate it up, and it's going to rise like this. and you can't lift it, but it's a dream. Remember, it's a dream. You can do anything you want
Oh,
to.
that's so cool.
So you have to, and what you want to do is remember to lift it up and look at your hand. And when you do that, half the time it'll startle you and you'll just wake up. And you'll see that the lights aren't on. It's dark in there. That was all just an image in your head. The other thing that I did, that the last time it happened to me, and I think this made it just go away, was I not only levitated my hand, but I levitated my whole body. So I levitated upright. I couldn't sit up, but I could levitate. So I levitated upright, and I looked over to the left, and I saw a hospital gurney right next to my bed, like the aliens had come to put me on the gurney, except it was a hospital gurney. And as soon as I saw that, it startled me, and I woke up, and again, I was laying down and the lights were out. Nice. So all of that stuff I was seeing was all part of the dream state. And if you can do this and harness it, you are lucid dreaming. Now you can dream anything you want to dream. You know,
I love lucid dreaming. It's incredible. But this does explain this does explain abduction stories. I mean, because
they're all
the crazy hallucinations or visions you see, like you said, are completely accurate and so detailed, and
you can't argue with someone's experience.
Yeah.
I know what I saw, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about do you remember, like, when this is probably a decade ago or maybe 15 years ago, but back when we were still in, like, late in high school, maybe early college, there'd be, like, I forget what they called it, but there's, like, certain noises. There's, like, kind of like different white noises you would listen to while falling asleep to get you into a lucid dream state.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not aware of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's not a thing anymore, so I'm assuming
if I could,
bullshit,
it probably was bullshit. If I could induce lucid dreaming, I would absolutely do it.
There are some herbs that apparently help you have vivid dreams.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if they work, but I've been advertised to.
The closest thing that I have come up with is virtual reality, and there's an app called Trip, TRIPP. Do you guys have a Quest?
We have my brother has an Oculus Rift, so I can use that.
The Trip app is worth the investment. If you get on there, just buy don't get the monthly thing, just buy the lifetime thing. It's like $20 or something. It's very inexpensive. And it is basically a psychedelic experience without the drugs, but it teaches you meditation and relaxation, all this stuff. Cool. But they have a Baba Ram Dass. Do you guys know who he is?
Yeah, Ram Dass.
Richard Alpert. I have his book right behind me.
Oh, really? Be Here Now?
Be Here Now. Yeah, it's a great one.
Cool.
Actually,
cool.
I might cut this out.
We probably need to hang out. You guys, we have a lot of stuff. You need to check out the Trip app because of the Richard Alpert, the Baba Ram Dass module is the closest thing to an acid trip that I've ever seen.
I mean, honestly, when I'm tripping balls, I pick up that book, Be Here Now. I'm like freaking out, and I'm like, all right,
you got to be here now.
Right. Yeah, it's like, this grounds me. This is very grounding.
Well, we just live in the present. People worry about things that haven't happened yet, or they worry about things in the past that they can't change, and they just miss out on being in the present. It sounds trite, but it's just so real. This is where we live. This is where we should live.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I don't know, I feel like every year I get older, every year goes faster because you have that perspective of everything. I don't know if that. I hope that doesn't continue, but it's
it does. Sorry.
Because like when you're
twice your age, it just goes by really fast.
Yeah, because like when you're in 6th grade, you're like, "Fuck, this school year's never gonna end." But then when you're like 32, you're like, "Oh shit, where'd that whole year go?" Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I fucked up one year, and I thought I was 64 or something, but turned out I was only 63. So when my birthday came around, it was like I got an extra year.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
That was pretty cool.
Great. Yeah.
My mother-in-law did the opposite. She thought she was 72, but she was actually 73. So when her birthday came around, she was 74, and she started crying. Like, I lost a whole year. It's like, no, you didn't really lose anything. Just like I didn't gain anything, but she felt like she did.
Right. Well, Dr. Steve, I know we're sort of running up on time here, But I was curious about your perspective on the placebo effect because
Yeah.
the way I look at it is it's proof that your thoughts or brain can control your physical reality or your health.
Can certainly affect it. Control might be a big
But
word, but
where's the line? Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
if that line is crossed at all, like what are your thoughts about it? And
It's
how
so
much does it
powerful.
play into medicine?
If people, well, it's everything in medicine. I mean, it's involved in everything that we do. If people don't know what we're talking about, the placebo effect is this idea that you give people a sugar pill and it will have the same effect as some drugs if they think that's what it's going to do.
Right.
And it's so powerful that it has to be subtracted from every single clinical trial that we do. If you don't do a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, that trial is going to be considered suspect. You know,
And Wallstreet
Just
Bitch.
because of how powerful the placebo is.
Wait,
Like,
Correct.
let's do a quick quiz.
Well, the effect. So,
Wall,
yeah,
sorry,
go
let's do a quick quiz. Wallstreet Bitch, define a double-blind study.
oh, if he doesn't know that, I'd be happy.
I don't think
we
he will.
did talk about it.
I don't think he will. I don't think he
I
heard
mean, yeah, you guys haven't.
What
it
is
hasn't
it?
been
What-
defined.
Well, we
What's
talked about it a minute ago when we were
double
talking
blind
about
is where
vitamin
both
D.
parties don't know
Correct.
what they're
exactly.
taking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do the
Here.
applause.
Give thyself a bell.
The researcher and the subject being researched doesn't know
I
what
see.
the study
Correct.
is
I
on.
see.
Yeah.
Correct. And what that does is it reduces bias, because if you know someone's taking something, you may be biased to say that the effect that they had was greater than it really was, or you may encourage them. I was in a double-blind, placebo-controlled acne study, and the nurse just went, "Oh no, you're on the real drug," and I was like, "Okay, you just defeated the whole purpose of this thing."
Oh no.
So, yeah. So the placebo effect is so powerful that any drug trial that you do that doesn't include that will not make it through FDA approval. So what you do is you give, let's say you're doing sildenafil. And that was originally looked at as a blood pressure drug, and we do use it for hypertension in the lungs. But sildenafil is the active ingredient in Viagra. So now you've determined that, well, this blood pressure medicine doesn't work that great, but everybody's reporting giant, meaty boners. So now we have to do another study. You can't sell it on that. You got to do a study with that as your endpoint. And you give 100 people the drug and 100 people a sugar pill, and nobody knows. And then they take it, and you'll get a certain number of people in the placebo trial that'll say, yeah, I got amazing boners on this stuff. Let's say it's 5%. You have to subtract that. So if you had 10% over here get amazing boners and 5% in the placebo, you got to subtract that out. So you say the actual effect is probably around 5% or whatever it is.
Interesting.
And there is a nocebo effect as well, where people will get adverse effects from the placebo that they can't possibly get. That will mirror what the drug does as well. Yeah. So you have to subtract those things out.
Do you think you'll let Blue Chew sponsor your show?
Well, I would. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sildenafil's well established. I like that Rugiet, Rugiet. They sell boner pills that have tadalafil, which is in Cialis, and sildenafil, which is in Viagra, but they have a third drug called apomorphine. Apomorphine was a cock pill that never made it to market, because if you ever have a dog that eats a pound of chocolate, they'll give it a shot of apomorphine and they'll throw it up. That's how they induce vomiting at the vet. But it is a really good, different mechanism, erectile dysfunction drug. So they put just a tiny little bit in there so that it doesn't cause people to puke, and it's compounded, so it's legal for them to do. And I really like theirs. It's a little pricey, but it's worth the money, I think.
What's it called again?
Rugiet is the company. There are other ones. They're not a sponsor of mine. If they were, I really wouldn't push it on here. But I mean, I don't have credibility at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good one. The apomorphine is something that people should look into.
Interesting.
If they're having cock issues. Yeah. But anyway, so yes, the placebo effect is extremely potent. And yes, we don't know how it works. You can't separate mind from body, that kind of stuff. And we learned a long time ago that we just had to include that in every study that we do, or they're not valid.
Is that the best way to approach diagnosing someone? Is the mind body as one approach? I don't know what that would look like, but um, do you ever suspect that someone's psychological issues are causing a physical
Yeah.
problem, or vice
Yeah.
versa?
A lot of times on those where I've worked them up and I can't find anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I've ruled out all the scary stuff, and I feel pretty confident that they don't have something that's going to kill them. I'll send them to my partner, Dr. Scott, who is a traditional Chinese medical.
that's
he went
great.
to 4-year traditional Chinese medical school.
He used to be on your show, right?
He still is.
You guys had,
He still
okay,
is.
yeah.
And he 100% of the time they would come back to me feeling better, because he would give them
wow.
a diagnosis. That's what a lot of people are looking for, is to have their
Right.
problem heard.
I feel like you
have
two
it
are a
named.
perfect foil to one another.
Yeah. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know,
I call him on his malarkey, and he calls me on my malarkey. So
I was thinking about taking Ayurvedic classes. Is Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine two separate fields?
they're separate. Ayurvedic
Okay.
is more of, Indian continent, east. Or
How do you feel about Ayurvedic practice? Is it
it's
legit?
fine as long as you're not exceeding the scope of your practice.
Right.
If you're saying, well, by drinking warm liquids because you're pitta or whatever, and that I'm going to cure your cancer, and the person is not going and getting CAR T-cell therapy, which is the newest, the coolest thing, then I have a problem with that. Now, if under Ayurvedic medicine, you're encouraging people to eat properly to prevent cancer, I'm all in on that. I think that's great. And I think there's a lot of value to that.
Right.
And, but so just, 90% of my patients when I was in primary care would have gotten better if they didn't see me. So if they're seeing an Ayurvedic person, the same number is true. As long as that Ayurvedic person will send the stuff that they can't fix to us, to the allopathic providers, and because there's stuff we can do. Allopathic medicine is there are some things that we can do that you just can't do in naturopathy or traditional Chinese medicine or any of that stuff.
Right.
And
what's
we
this
do
new,
tend to. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what is this new cancer treatment that you mentioned?
Oh, CAR T-cell therapy.
Is it not chemo?
No, it is use the patient's white blood cells to kill their cancer. So
that's exciting.
The simplified idea of it, the original idea was you take the T cells out of the patient's body and you expose it to biopsy tissue of their cancer, and you might treat it in a way that exposes the internal proteins a little bit more to the T cells, and then you inject it back in. It's kind of like giving a search dog a sock and say, here's little Timmy's sock, go find him. And he goes find him in the woods, and they will go and just kill every cancer cell that they can find.
Oh,
and
interesting.
the first case of that type of killer T cell therapy was in a woman with stage 4 cervical cancer. You can see it on my website. If you go to drsteve.com and just click on non-pseudoscience cancer cures, I haven't updated it in years, but that one is still there. And she was dying of cervical cancer, and they just kind of came to her and said, "Do you want to try this?" And she's like, "What have I got to lose?" And that lady is still walking around today cancer free.
Wow.
So we're getting really close to having a generalizable cure for cancer, or generalizable treatment for cancer.
That's
awesome.
exciting.
I used to say it was 100 years away, and I think now we're talking, maybe 10.
Really?
10,
10 years?
Yeah.
So you're saying we could live our lives, get ready to get cancer, and it'll be cured.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, maybe that's if this holds up for other cancers, for sure.
Interesting.
Right, cool.
Yeah, it's on the market now. They're using it for certain cancers, and it's so expensive and hard to do. You have to go to certain places, and you got to sign up for a lottery, and then hope that you get accepted into it. But that's just the beginning. Once they demonstrate continued improvement with this stuff, it'll get cheaper and faster and easier to do.
Yeah, so that's actually something as a site, like, because ibogaine is going to be legalized in Colorado in 2025.
What are they not legalizing in Colorado?
If the mushroom
is
experiment,
prostitution legal in Colorado? Because if it is,
you gotta go to Reno for that. But it's not too far. You're close,
Okay. I'll move there tomorrow.
I also have a real estate license, so I could maybe get you a good deal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
We'll talk offline.
I'm not even. I'm only half kidding. So
I don't know, man. Like, people
sounds like utopia.
People love it out here. People love it out here.
It is great.
Come
out
visit.
Here.
We'll put you up somewhere in one of our
Okay.
houses.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they ever do they do Skankfest or anything there? I mean, what do they? They do anything interesting there that I could have an excuse to come there?
Red Rocks. You could see like Bill Burr at Red Rocks.
Okay.
I did that last summer, or maybe 2 years ago.
They do have maps out here, or they did.
Yeah, they do the psychedelic conference out here, the biggest psychedelic medicine.
Oh, yes,
conference.
okay.
Yeah, maps, yeah.
Yeah, send me that. I'll come to that.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that'll
for
be
real.
next summer. Yeah, for real. We'll put you.
Yeah, because I
we'll
think
just
the
let you
trip
stay in one of
people
our
were coming to
houses, yeah.
that, and I'll meet them there. But you guys got to try that out. It's TRIPP. It's in the App Store, and you can do a sort of a focus module just to see what it's like. But you want to do the full experience.
We will.
Okay.
Does Dr. Scott ever podcast?
Yeah, with me, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Dude, he just shows up,
Uh-huh.
and that's it.
That's kind of how the Wallstreet Bitch is.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do all the.
Yeah,
I'm the host. I'm the executive producer. I'm the producer. I'm the CEO. Scott just shows up.
No, the thing is, like, I have a shitty radio voice, and he's got the radio voice. So I
don't
need
have a
him.
good radio
No, you
voice.
both got it.
Yeah, it's the
No, you guys
best,
are fine.
That's not as good as yours, Dr.
Yeah.
Steve.
No, mine used to be awesome, but I'm losing it. You know, the older you get, the kind of, for me, and that long thing did not help with my voice.
Well,
Sure.
I still think it sounds beautiful.
So the other thing,
Well, thank you.
before we do, I mean, I know it's late for you.
Well,
I
that's
don't know.
because you're an idiot.
Are you a night owl over there in Tennessee?
Mhm.
It's like 11 o'clock for you.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock, but I
10
do have to
o'clock,
go pretty
yeah.
soon.
But
I'm enjoying
one,
this. So.
one other question that we asked you 3 years ago is we had this urine therapist, or they call it Orin therapy, and honestly, we almost became a piss themed podcast because we could only get people who drank their own urine to come on. but this one guy,
Very close.
this one guy goes by Brother Sage, and we're still talking to him. 3 years later. Would
Okay.
you come on our podcast with him and just
Just rip
talk?
him.
Yeah.
No, what I won't do is I won't shit on him. And listen,
No, I
if
don't
that's,
want you to shit on him.
Yeah, no,
either,
I
but,
won't- I
I
don't
just
wanna
want.
do
I want to
that.
have
He's a nice guy.
I want to have someone who has the medical answers to why urine.
do you
might
think
not be
he's going to
good for
listen
you.
to me when I say, because this is what they'll say, we're reclaiming vitamins that
Yes,
we're pissing
that is
out.
his line. Yeah.
Just go. That's true. If you don't need B12, the water soluble vitamins, you will just piss them out. My brother, who is a physician, used to say, Americans have the most expensive piss in the world because we take all these water soluble vitamins and then just, our body doesn't need them and we just excrete them. Yeah, you reclaim it. If you don't need it, you're still going to piss them out. And the other thing is, just go buy a fucking vitamin.
Yeah.
And just take a pill, just take the vitamin. There's
Yeah.
nothing magical about it.
But
Why-
then they
Why are you so cheap that you take a vitamin and then you have to just keep recycling it over and over again? Just stop it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the one
That's
claim that we had was there's this
Yeah.
lady, and she's she's actually a math professor at some college in Nevada, and she claims that she was injured by the Pfizer vaccine,
Okay.
and so she said the only thing that cured her
Okay. that's
vaccine
fine.
injury was drinking her own urine.
That's fine.
Clear
So
the
that-
metals
yeah,
out. That's
clear,
that is an-
clear the toxins out. Yeah.
That is an anecdotal. Okay. So,
But she has a
listen,
whole group of followers. She has
Sure.
1,000 people following her, and
It's
all-
still, if you have 1,000
Yeah.
people who do it, it's still anecdotal.
okay.
yeah.
So It's only scientific if you take, 1,000 people and give some of them urine and some of them a placebo, and then you see. And the other thing, I would challenge these people: what toxins are you talking about? Have you measured them? Because I hear all these people talking about toxins. Well, what toxins? What do you have to measure toxins? There are, we have toxicologists that can measure toxins. So if you show me that you are excreting these toxic molecules and your intervention, makes that decrease or increase, in other words, you're excreting more, which is less in your body, I'll start to believe you. But until then, you're just talking psychobabble.
She was saying that there was snake venom in the vaccine.
All
sorts of metals.
Yeah, blowfish, like whatever that poisonous blowfish is.
venom.
Like
fugu.
Fugu.
Poison,
Yeah, like
neurotoxins.
She was saying all that was in the vaccine.
We were just like,
is that true? Like, because honestly, we don't know. But I question that. Yeah.
Let me talk a little bit about placebo and marketing. So, and anecdotal evidence. So let's say that I have some bullshit remedy, and it's got a 5%. Yeah, whatever. It's we'll call it snake oilium or something,
or your own piss.
And I send it out to 1,000 people. Now, if it has a 5%, 5% placebo effect, then 5%, that would be 50 people, right? That would say that this really helped them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'd throw away the 950 that say this stuff is bullshit, and I keep those 50 and I put them on my website. And I have page after page after page of people saying, yep, this stuff really helped me. But all of it is just placebo. And it's so easy to bias people that way. It's called selection bias, where I threw away all the confounding evidence and just kept the 50 anecdotal things, and I can fool people with stuff.
And
like
that's
that.
how vulnerable people get preyed upon too.
I've got 50 people on here, or if you do 10,000, I've got 500 pages of people saying that this stuff really works. So you have to be very careful. That's why I always demand the data, and you want to see double-blind, placebo-controlled evidence where possible. Hard to do like an acupuncture study, but when someone's selling a pill or a liquid or an elixir or something like that, that is absolutely doable if they'll just do it.
And longitudinally, like how long should that be?
It depends. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're trying to prevent cancer, you need to look at either a really large group over a few years or a smaller group over a whole, a few decades.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So anyway, it's just scientific method stuff. So just don't forget your scientific method when you're blown away by someone's claims.
Right.
I'm not saying that they're bullshit. That it probably did help her. And but is it generalizable to the rest of the population? That's the question.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a really
maybe
good way
she
to
was the
approach
one
it, too.
person that would help. There's no way to know. But it really did. It cured her.
It's funny on TikTok. I'm seeing urine drinking blow up slowly, and I'm just like, oh my god, Like there's this bodybuilder model who has really tan skin. He's promoting it now, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's getting out of control.
Did
gotta
you
promote something.
Did you see my X-ray, by the way?
Oh no, no,
I tweeted it at you. Broken ring finger at the base. You commented on it.
Oh, I did.
Online.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all right. It's healing.
What did I say?
No surgery needed. You said,
really?
Ooh,
okay.
Looks rough. Yeah. I was in a tragic scooter accident. One of those electric scooters. I don't know if you have those in Tennessee yet.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Oh,
all
wow.
right.
One of the rentable. Where you rented it? You mean?
Yeah, you rent it like through
you can
Uber
just leave
or
it
whatever.
and you
leave
we
it
have it in
wherever.
some of the cities, and like Nashville, they had them.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah, that was my highfalutin medical diagnosis. Ooh, that looks painful.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Steve, do you want to shout out anything, promote anything? Tell us
any last words of advice?
Yeah. No, check us out at Weird Medicine, wherever podcasts are found, and Sirius XM. Just listen to us on demand. That's the best way to do it.
Mhm.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdmedicine. On that one, I've got all kinds of stuff that is not out there anywhere else.
I'm gonna subscribe tomorrow.
And we do
so,
well.
yeah.
Thank you. You don't have to, but
I want
if I
to.
could, yeah, I would give you a free one, but Patreon won't let you do that. You can't
You
give out.
You can just Venmo
we'll
me like
support.
every month. You know.
Well, I was doing that for one person for a while. That I was just refunding them because they were in there just to troll me, and so every month I would just refund their money.
If you come on our podcast again, I'm
Yep.
in. Yeah.
Okay. No, absolutely. Of
Yeah.
course. This is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot how much fun this was because you guys are, you're smart and you ask fun questions that, are actually, to me, are interesting. I don't know if
Yeah. No,
it's
and
interesting to anybody listening.
we hope
to us.
it's interesting to other people too.
Yeah.
But we
doubt it.
appreciate your time so much too because we have a lot of fun also.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
good.
So,
We've-
and hopefully we can meet in person in Denver.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. All right, cool. Well, thanks,
All right.
guys.
Well, thank you very much,
check me out
Dr. Steve.
cameo.com/weirdmedicine. I'll say fluid to your mom or whatever.
Maybe I'll get
that'd
my
be
mom
great.
that
Those are
for
dirt
her
cheap.
birthday. It's coming up December 2nd.
Yeah, I got to
so,
do
yeah.
some cameos as soon as we're
Yeah.
done.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
All right,
All right.
Dr. Steve.
Thanks, Dr.
Well, thank
Steve.
you
Take care.
again.
Yeah,
Hopefully
we
we'll talk to
appreciate
you soon.
Take care, man.
All right. Hope
All
so.
right, bye.